Hi, this is Premal Parekh, CEO of Accorian. Today we have great number of people here with us who are going to be talking about AI security, which, as you know, is the topic of discussion around the world right now. Would love to just start with a round of introductions. If we can start with you, Andy, and then work our way around.
Hi, I'm Andy Sen, the co-founder and CTO at Pricanto, which is an AI-powered FP&A platform, which is financial planning and analysis, used mostly by finance departments for medium and large enterprises.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Mohit, co-founder and CTO at Olive. And at Olive, we are building the AI risk management layer. We are building the governance stack and insurance for AI liability.
Hey, this is Srijan Shetty. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Fuse. Fuse is a stablecoin infrastructure platform. We provide regulated banks and fintechs the ability to launch stablecoin products like cross-border payments and wealth.
Hi, I'm Naren. I'm co-founder and CTO at Raven Mail. We protect enterprises from AI-based attacks.
Cool. Excellent. As you know, and as all of us around the globe right now all care about AI, AI is picking up in a big way. And security is something we should care about, sometimes as an afterthought. But I want to talk about that, figure out where you guys are, what are you thinking about in that world. So I'm going to open it up to whoever has questions or answers to the questions. But just overall, how do you look at AI security right now? How do you think about that?
So I see that the adoption of AI is way faster than the governance. And it's like we have built the AI and AI agents and gave them the keys before we could design and build the logs.
Yeah.
So if you, as I said, if you look at the organizations and enterprises, humans used to be the operators and who has access to data, and they can read, write, and operate on the data. Now you have AI agents, same level of permissions, but they are just 100x faster, and they can execute the malicious instructions 100x faster too.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you don't even know they're malicious, right? Till after the fact.
So building upon what Naren said, right? Fundamentally, up till now, the threat surface was essentially a script kiddie trying to manually do things. Now give them a ChatGPT and OpenAI, and they are 100x more malicious and powerful. You don't really need to be smart anymore. You can just point an AI, like just an LLM, say, attack this surface, and you can expose so many different things. The old school thinking of 6 months VAPT or having a manual kind of security system has to go away. Now every open port on the web is an attack surface, which is very interesting, and I don't think people are stressed about it enough.
Yeah, I think as the models are also getting better and better, so are the sophistications in the attack, because it's very naive to think that these models will always be used for goodness, for bringing good to the society. There are always bad actors, and these models have access to these models, and just like you said, Srijan, right? It's becoming a moving target. It cannot be a point-in-time assessment of how the posture looks like, how the security guardrails look like, because these models are also changing behind the scenes, and you don't know what zero-day attacks now look like. You'll have to find ways to keep up with the.
No, absolutely. I think just to add to that, I think there's one side which is the hackers, right? The malicious side of it. But then there's the other side because, the adoption is accelerating. So it doesn't even have to be malicious, right? It could be just doing something that is incorrect and not realizing it till after the fact, right? We've all seen the LinkedIn post of someone's backups getting deleted in 9 seconds or whatever the case is. So it's not always malicious. Absolutely malicious is one side of it. The other side of it just being, what does governance look like? What does security look like? Do you even know what's happening with your data, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else around this? Or
no, I think one of the best examples is AWS being down for 13 hours because they gave access to all the instances. But AI agent taking one of the most reliable infrastructure providers out there for 13 hours, that tells me the level of severity of what is happening with AI right now.
Yeah, so it's both the hacking side and the governance and how do you manage this, right?
Yep.
So one of the things that I want to just clarify is AI security versus AI safety, right? I think we use those terms interchangeably, but in reality, they're adjacent but not the same. Any thoughts on what the difference is between the two?
So I think there's a very fine line when it comes to thinking about security and safety. when I think about security or when we talk to people in the industry, it's always from a lens of someone else attacking your system from the outside. They're trying to cause harm. They have bad intent. They have malicious intent. They have tools to cause harm to your system. But given the tools and capabilities AI agents or applications have as of today, and the kind of decision-making capabilities and autonomy they have, I think they have a large probability of doing self-inflicted harm. So if your agent is, say, deployed in a healthcare institute and interacting with patients, if it ends up giving bad advice, or if and it ends up giving...
So that's the safety side more than the security side.
Safety has to also... So even within safety, I feel that there is safety within the organization. How you're using AI, whether it's safe or not, in the way that AWS... So building onto your example, right? Where it's causing system downtime within your systems, but when it's also exposed to people outside who are consuming these applications or interacting with these applications, I think safety also becomes a concern to the society. How different ways your agent can cause issues which can lead to some serious harm outside the organization.
Yeah, and I think to add to it, like a very common example, we are used to long-running keys, right? So a lot of people use OAuth credentials, long-running keys, which are not fine-grained. Let's take a developer who has access to some dev instance, right? You tell an agent to do something. If they have access to the key in the end variable, these are smart enough, they'll pick it up, SSH, and do things. In case the environment has some, again, keys to the database, they can just drop it. That for me is a safety wherein can the hammer drop on your own feet? Versus security is, I look of security more of an external parameter. How do I protect myself from external threat actors? Versus safety, one, hallucinations are a good example, but also can someone in the company end up using AI-based data, which might cause reputational harm? Yeah. So because we rely so much on AI these days, if it comes up with some answer which is just made up and you pass it on to a partner, that's not a good look for me as well.
Yeah, and it happens. It's, there's enough news about it when it does happen, right? Reputational harm, as you said.
I think the point you said about the keys, right? So it's not just that you have keys, let's say, accidentally checked into your Git repo and so on, right? You typically, let's say we have a developer. The developer is going to have a key in their .env file, right? Usually. Yeah. And what happened is the dev is running an AI agent, and what happens straight off the bat is the agent reads it up, right? And can then go on and work in ways that the dev is not even aware of.
Clearly, we have a bunch of CTOs here,
right? Yeah. So, and that is not an external threat actor, right? And that, to me, that becomes a safety issue, because when you go and when you try to do the root cause analysis of an incident, right, and you point and you go back to the dev, and the dev is most of the times unaware that something like this had happened. Yeah. Because they're like, oh, I left the agent running. I did not know the agent would do that.
Yep. Yeah. I think there's a fine line, right? Whether it's security or safety. When I think of safety, I think more hallucinations, bias, health information getting leaked, things like that. But you're right. Even where is that? Some of that safety, some of it security.
Yep.
End of the day, understanding there's two parts. There's the attackers, and then there's just how is data used, how is the bias coming in, how does it get played out. Just along those lines, right? As AI accelerates in usage, and what I'm seeing, especially in the States, is every company is just saying use AI. It feels like for those who have been around the .com days, right? Which is like just find a way to do things, and then you're figuring out what's right, what's wrong. What do you guys think about shadow AI? Is it a problem? Is it a big problem? Is it a small problem? Is it a problem?
I think shadow AI is something that most CTOs, CIOs, and CISOs will privately acknowledge. And depending on the size of the organization, if you're an early stage startup or mid-stage startup, you might want to keep it for later. And for the mid or larger size organizations, they will, they tend to go after it heavily, right? But what happens is, in terms of shadow AI, because there's a productivity element to it, right? Every one of your employees, contractors, subcontractors, they want to show their best work. And whether your IT department has approved an AI tool or not, They're going to go, and because they've all taken the training, they will use their work email, but they will sign up for any and every AI service which they believe will enhance their productivity, will enhance their output, right? Which will make them look good to their boss. And what they don't read is the fine print behind these services, which says that they're going to be using your company's data, and sometimes your company's data might be your customers' data to do their training, their model training, and further aggregation, and so on, right? So shadow AI definitely out there, and it's a big thing, and I'm not sure there is right now a standardized way to address that. It's people are going after it piecemeal. They have maybe like agents running on the laptop, agents running on the web, but I'm not sure if there is a standard out there that addresses this.
And I think the problem with shadow AI is there is no way to control it. Let's take the example of a multimodal AI agent right now. Earlier, you had these models wherein you gave a laptop, it was locked so that you could not copy. But as long as there's a screen, an AI can take a photo, completely transcribe it, and do whatever you want to do. Granola or any of these models, right? They plug into the audio jack and they can listen onto it. If you have a speaker, AI can listen. At this point, AI is just another human, right? Because they can consume audio, they can look at images and do everything that a human can do. So how do you even avoid shadow AI at this point of time? You just have to acknowledge that it exists. Figure out how to give the right tooling. Like, at least personally, if someone asks for an AI tool, I would rather get the enterprise plan and give it to them versus them using it themselves, because one, it's a productivity improvement, and two, they will use it. Like, I cannot avoid that anyhow.
Yeah. I think.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think just to add to it, one small. So these desktop machines on which the employees or teams are working on now, no matter how secured your cloud infrastructure is, no matter how secured your overall infrastructure is, I think shadow or AI is inviting new ways of penetration, because now if I'm using Cloud Code, I'm downloading a couple of skills. They are massive productivity boost. Which skill is malicious? I can just go to GitHub and download it and start using it, and maybe it has a port open to some server in some malicious server, and it's putting all the company data or like IP data into that server. I think no matter how well defended your cloud's infrastructure is, I think this is now becoming a new plane of penetration.
Yeah. So, like it is like saying the users cannot click the links in the email or don't download the attachments. So you can't stop that, right? And the only way is to standardize the tools and give the best tools to the teams. And if it's a small team, they can have a global AI handbook. I mean, that's what we do. So AI guidance on engineering practices and also security practices. And if it's a bigger organization, then each team can pick their standardized AI tools, because HR will have different needs and development will have different needs. So I think that's the only way to contain this.
I don't think you can. I think the acknowledgement of the problem is there, right? And then it's how do you try to solve? I don't even know if you're solving for it, but how do you manage it for life?
Yeah, I think it's all management. Like, I need to build the protections to ensure that does not happen. For example, with like Claude opening ports, you have egress limits in terms of the laptops. You have endpoint management over there. You use zero trust network. I am more concerned about the fact that even if the computer is secure, AI can just consume it via different modes. So you will always be subject to a shadow AI agent. It's just how do you manage it exactly?
I think you have to acknowledge that you cannot lock down the laptop or your, because the analog leak is always there. Let's say you have someone in healthcare, very privileged, laptops locked down, USB, mic, everything's locked down, can't install anything. The person faces a problem. What are they going to do? They're going to take a picture with their personal cell phone and then use and they already have an AI agent running on their phone, and they'll be like, help me solve this, right? So the analog leak where someone can take a picture of their screen is always there, and that's how your data will leak out, right? So there has to be a new standard.
Is it so? You're right. It'll happen. Is it more just education at some point with acknowledgement and?
No, I would just give them the tool that they're going to use.
Education, acknowledgement, education, handbooks, and then guardrails.
So I think the guardrail part, so what we felt worked was teams, whether they are technology, engineering, HR, marketing, irrespective, give them the tool that they ask for without question. It's like auto approved, right? And then go and do your due diligence. So it is a little bit of a lag where you're doing the due diligence after you've given access, but at least and that kind of
At least you know what you're
gives
using.
the teams the confidence that, hey, look, management or IT is not going to shut me down. They may get shut down later because they might come back and say that, hey, look, the tool you're using, it's not great, but here's an alternative. Or you guys are using the free 30-day unlimited starter plan. Here's the enterprise plan, right? We upgrade you. But you have to give it them because otherwise people will use it.
And you've seen that even in SaaS tools right now, AI is everywhere, right? I think there was a big HubSpot thing that just happened where it was basically an opt-out on, our data is now, or my data is now HubSpot's data, and they had to back off, right? But you can't avoid it. It's okay, this one caused noise, and so they had to back down, but the next one they'll get better at working through. I'm not saying HubSpot, but someone else will. And so it's just really, how do you manage it is really the question.
I think I completely agree with Andy that you give them the best tool for the job. Like, honestly, it's like saying now we don't use Stack Overflow, but asking your developers not to use Stack Overflow probably like 2 years ago. They are going to use it. Yeah. They are going to Google stuff. And it's actually better for me if they use the best tool in the job and get more done. So the policy should be you give them the best tool, put in the guardrails, use like zero data retention or whatever guardrails is there. And usually what ends up happening is people, like at least non-tech, they don't use more than one tool. The learning curve is also a little higher for different tools. People don't move around a lot. So if you give them the one or two tools, the organization is a much better security position.
Pramod, coming to your question, right? I think your question around data and how do you ensure, let's say if you are an AI-enabled product or an AI-enabled SaaS platform, right? How do you handle this? I'm going to use your data and your data is now my data, right? The key part is there has to be very clear policies, and the policy has to be baked into the commercial contract, right? When I, as an AI SaaS provider, go to my customers, go to my prospects, I'm very clear saying that, hey, look, we are an AI tool. We are going to be using your data to train. And then our policy is the data that we use to train will be used only by you. Mm-hmm. So that gives them the confidence. Or if your business and your domain allows it, you may say that, hey, look, we are going to be using your data to train. You can opt out of it. And you can decide the commercials accordingly. But the only way over there is transparency in a commercial and a policy setting. There's no other way to do it because any AI SaaS service that you use, you cannot go there and audit them and say, are you using my data for training? You have to take their word for it. And it's just better when their word is a policy and in a legal contract.
I think these like SOC 2 Type 2, ISO, these might evolve with the whole idea which tell you how much data is used for AI. But again, it's another question that we had a SOC 2 issue also recently. But ideally, you will have a certification which says that for enterprise clients, we are not using your data and this is the audited proof. Yeah. That gives me comfort. Like when someone says there's zero data retention, I have comfort that they're not using my data.
I think one of the questions on that front, reason I have is, so we can bake it in the contract, we can bake it in the policy, but given the AI tools that we're using have autonomy, are they following that policy or that contract to the T?
But that's going to be always with anything that you do, right? So even with if you have a SOC 2, if you use a SaaS provider with SOC 2 Type 2, they might end up having an issue or they always have hacks. We've seen so many hacks of data, right?
Yeah.
That's a best effort, and to some extent, we believe in trust.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, a compliance standard doesn't mean you're never going to get hacked. No one's ever guaranteeing that. Same thing here, right? Some of it's contractually put in place in terms of what is the mitigation if something does happen. I think the issue really to me, part of it is you can do that if, the big company, small company, right? If you're negotiating. If you're trying to negotiate with one of the bigger providers, it's really hard if you're a small firm, right? You're just going to have to go with whatever they say and just sign or don't sign at some point.
Yep. It's right? When you look at it, right, your AI becomes a stack. So when any organization, and most organizations are going to be a provider and they're going to be a consumer of AI. And so they're a stack where let's say even us as an AI SaaS company, we use other companies which use AI. And because you are a stack of AIs, right, which is what it is. You are a stack of AI. Our company's product is an AI product in our customer's company. And the stack of companies, this follows the SOC 2 paradigm of are your sub-processors. So we are a sub-processor. We have our own sub-processors, right? So the entire chain of sub-processors, I think there has to be some sort of compliance standard or methodology which handles that full chain and the full stack.
And it's going to evolve, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they have to evolve the compliance standards over time as well. To move to a different question, you're all in the tech space. How do you look at chatbots and the exposure they give, positive and negative, right? They're great for just ability to communicate, but how are you testing them? How are you making sure they're secure? How do you look at that internally, if you will?
So I think definitely a lot of positives, because now the ideas are not stuck within the how your team is the availability of the team. Each individual who is contributing to their projects or their systems are able to brainstorm a lot, do a lot of research which was otherwise very tedious. So there's a lot of upside to these chatbots being available to the team, but then where do you draw the line between how much data are they providing in order to brainstorm or in order to reach a certain goal? What kind of data finally ends up there? Is it maybe you're working with the customer's data and you want to do some quick analysis or something like that, and you end up putting that. How do you draw that line is where I think one of the questions that I'm struggling with, within the team. That of course education awareness could be one, that this is a big no-no, but then how do you enforce it?
And in that case, you're talking about you putting data into someone else's chatbot as opposed to building your own chatbot, and how do you make sure that's secure as well, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that case, these days, like any ML team or data science team inside the organization, they start with LLM. So, GenAI takes any ML use case from 0 to 80. And then probably to reduce the cost or to increase the performance or latency, they go back to building any transformer-based architecture or traditional models, maybe. So, given like everyone starts with LLM, the one thing in cybersecurity is that we always been struggling since 90s is the information and the instruction and data. So if you take the code, so we always separate the instruction and data to avoid SQL injection attacks, and try to sanitize the inputs from API, sandbox it. But if you take LLM now, the boundary between instruction and data is almost zero. So both instruction and data is in plain English. And this has become the huge threat vector, right? So attackers do prompt injection attacks, and the prompt injection can come from anywhere. It can come from an email, an attachment, a link in the calendar, or instruction, anywhere, right? So, and this has increased the threat surface, and the people who get targeted inside the organization are not just the users or employees, it also the AI agents. So your target has AI agents have multiplied the target also. So and they have the same level of permissions, and they can also act even faster than humans. So how we will be securing it it depends on the use case, right? So if we are using LLM for ML use case and ML services, this can be usually how we do is do a internal red teaming and while developing. So basically shift left while developing itself, you do the red teaming and to make sure it's not leaking any critical information and it is secure, and also do the red teaming once it goes outside, and then connect the observability stack and then see the data drift really with respect to security and privacy.
I think again there are two ways, like you can be a chatbot provider or a consumer. I'll talk about consumer, right? There are a few standard practices these days. You can have LLM as a judge, so every prompt that goes in is judged by another LLM, which could be in a secure sandbox. So if it fails, you know that the egress, so the LLM judges it, If it makes a call outside, you know that there's a potential vulnerability over here, and you can skip that. You can do system prompts. Like most of the providers have system prompts, which you can just feed in information. You can just say, hey, as soon as you see PII, just disable the whole query. And finally, so these are the two ways which I think is working well. Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Apart from LLM as judge is something we use too. So that's what comes at the end of the observability stack.
Yeah.
When you see the different data, instead of people sitting and labeling the ground truth data, you just give it to 4 or 5 LLMs and they come to a best conclusion. Apart from that, one thing that really works well for us is LLM or GNA is a non-deterministic system, right?
Yeah.
So we do put like pre and post guardrails of deterministic system. This goes on case-by-case basis. But let's say we are building a DLP system to detect PAI data, right? And to avoid hallucinations, any PAI data, mostly like credit card numbers, even Aadhaar and PAN card comes with a checksum. So we have like post LLM guardrail to make sure it is not hallucinating and detecting some other data as PAI data. And then so the model itself calls these functions and make sure it is not hallucinating.
That's cool. You've taken away my next question, you guys, but that's good. So it sounds like, a mixture of, from a security perspective on chatbot, whether it's training and whether using red teaming, internal, external, leveraging multiple LLMs to try to figure out, if someone's going off basis from a hallucination perspective, or just doing something that shouldn't be done, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's really, I think, leveraging AI for AI on top of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you can leverage it quite a bit, but then making sure it's all secure is always going to
Which is what Fable is also doing. If you think about Fable, when you give it an input that goes to an LLM, then it generates an output that also goes to an LLM. So you'll see a lot of times that you will be able to prompt it to do things. It'll start the conversation immediately. It'll clean it up because it is also going through a classifier. And I think Anthropic has done a really good job over there.
I think all the approaches work, but the final backstop is always the human in the loop, right? One of the things, because our product is in the business of financial forecasting, and the key part of the forecast is a month has gone by, a quarter has gone by, the performance report, did the forecast match, what has happened? Was the forecast accurate enough, right? Or sometimes when you see the numbers, because typically finance folks, when they look at your numbers, when Premal, I'm pretty sure when you also look at your numbers, you're like, that doesn't look right. So the humans will always
have never looked right.
The humans always have an intuitive feel, especially for people in their field, right? I think giving a subset of the data to the human in the loop is also a key part, which will allow you to catch drifts over very large time periods, not your obvious ones which happen on a day-to-day basis or a month-to-month, but something that you'll see over quarters, with the human in the loop approach.
I'll take a small tangent here. So the human in the loop is because of use of GenAI and a lot of LLMs, human in the loops are becoming lazy.
I was just going to say
that.
The fact that you rely so much on AI these days, it's just like a calculator, right? You don't expect it to be. Yeah, in college I used to do mental math. I used to multiply things around, and now I have to search for the iPhone to just put things in. As we depend on AI more, we'll depend lesser on our own intellect and hunches.
Yeah.
6 months ago, I never thought that I would let an LLM write my code, and now I just glance at. Earlier, I used to do line by line diffs. Now I just do a vibe check that this looks good, should probably work. I don't know. Human in the loop is going to get dumber.
No, but
that's
I think
interesting.
When it comes to regulated industries like healthcare, finance, or legal, it's still very early right now to say that human in the loop can be completely eliminated.
No, I'm not saying eliminated. I'm just saying that getting dumber.
They're
going to
lazy.
They're not going to look at it as close.
I think the idea is the human in the loop uses deterministic tools and not AI or Gen AI or LLMs, right? The idea is the human in the loop has a set of deterministic tools to validate.
But for how long? The world is moving in a direction where non-determinism. The best example, most of the software that I use these days is so bad. Everything that used to be a spectacle of perfection has gone down the drain. And now people are okay with it.
I think there are some industries such as finance where it will be there forever, because you would not want to see your compounding go wrong after 25 years because the LLM, dreamt up some interest rate. Right?
I think the hard part in all this is I do agree that you'll get lazier, lack of a better word, lazier, right? You'll spot check as opposed to look at it closer. And then how do you train people not to do that? And is that even possible, right? Over time, they might do it once or twice, but do they continue to do that?
So there was this interesting case that happened that a huge law firm in the US depended on LLMs. They were using a service which provided AI legal, paralegal services, and they depended on the outputs of that to present an argument in the court, which was
this went to the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah, and it was completely hallucinated, and they got penalized for it. So I think that is also one way to look at it. That whenever you're depending on outputs and you're being lazy, like you would have gone through that research and validated the output. But if you didn't do that, you will.
There's some penalty of some sort, reputation or real dollars.
So how we handle in our organization is, as in any engineering org, we have the handbooks to do things and standard operating procedures. But it should also come from the leadership, right, or the managers. So you have to introduce deliberate friction points in the life cycle of any outcome. If it's a software, deliberate friction points while writing specs and friction points while reviewing the outcome or QA. So this way, like, we have reduced this problem a lot. So people know that they are going to be accountable. It doesn't matter AI wrote thousands of lines of code. End of the day, if something goes wrong, they're going to stay up and debug things at night, right? And they're going to be accountable. So this introducing deliberate frictions before taking up the task and then after completing the task, it has helped us a lot.
I think to Narayan's point, what's going to happen is you're going to be using AI to accelerate, build systems and processes, which do not hallucinate, right? Which are deterministic in nature. So right now we're at the stage where we're starting to use AI directly, or are we using but where I think the real progress is use AI to build deterministic systems faster, right? Because a deterministic system, once you've built it, it is by its very nature it's deterministic, and it's easier to audit, it's easier to explain, and it's easier to roll back.
I fundamentally think that our love for determinism will probably go away because humans are not determinists, right? We cook up ideas. We've built all of our infrastructure, TCP, IP, on non-determinism. Like a packet can go, but it drops. So we build fault correction inside, right? I think fundamentally we'll have to build some kind of fault
correction. Your physical layer is always non-deterministic, but our systems layer on top is deterministic. You're right, the TCP IP example where your packets drop, but that's why you have the sliding window. That's why you have everything moving back, right? You are not, I can assure you, you're not going to buy a car where you go in one day and the car goes, sorry, Premal, I'm not, I don't feel like getting into Bangalore traffic today. It's not my day.
I don't think it ever does, but yes.
Right? Yeah. Right. So you want, humans are not deterministic, but we want our systems and processes to be as deterministic as possible, right?
Yeah, I think that is where the opportunity also lies. How do you bring in explainability and accountability without probably having too much determinism baked in? I think that is where the opportunity lies when it comes to building AI agents and AI systems. How can we create an infrastructure which can explain the decisions taken by the AI? Maybe we can keep a trail of all the reasoning that they had. Maybe we can keep a trail of all the outputs they had and then measure it against having a LLM as judge, right? And then figure out whether it's drifting over time or not. But I think determinism, I agree fully with Sreesan that love for determinism is going to go away because that's where a lot of use cases and opportunities are opening up. So I think innovation has to catch up. Use cases will keep opening.
There'll be fault correction, error correction systems, where like the checksums. I think we'll build something.
But that gets you to determinism.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Somehow. End of the day.
No, I also say this from a old guard perspective because I write this code. This is the only way to write code. And eventually in 6 months, I have kind of moved away from it. It's like, okay, I don't care if it is the curly braces are on the same line or on different lines, which was a war that programmers fought for like years now. I will just give it to AI's choices. I will obviously have guardrails and systems which will make sure that it is legible, good, etc. But then I'm also okay with evolving with time.
I think just to pick on that old guard comment, right? Because as
don't pick
old
on
guards,
The old guards.
I think one of the things that's going to happen is programming languages will go away. So it will, AI will evolve to a stage where we'll be like, you know what, guys, why do we need to write this in English? And why do we need to, so there will be a formal specification. If you remember formal language and automated theory, there will be a formal specification and the AI will be right. I'm just going to write this as close to assembly as possible. And, all your C, Java, C#, Python, Rust, those are all Fortran, all of those are they're 5 decades old. We don't need to use them. And anyway, like you said, you don't even read the code anymore. So why? So have a layer of checks, have a layer of tests, right?
Yep.
Have the explainability and the auditability built in. I think programming languages is going to go away. I think they will go away.
And we have end-to-end tests, we have unit tests, which just make sure that which is the eval, right? So you make sure that everything works. You just have enough guardrails and protections built in place that you don't shoot yourself in the feet. That's all.
So that goes back to, or moving on to a different but connected topic, governance, right? So if you look at SOC 2 Type 2, if you look at ISO 27001, which are the two most used standards, if you will, none of them, I'll say this out loud, none of them really handle AI, right? SOC 2 Type 2 definitely doesn't. Neither does ISO. Where do you guys see coming along, right, from a governance perspective? How do you get to the trust factor at some point? Because, you can put it into the contracts, and we should put it into the contracts. But beyond that, what is that governance structure you see coming in?
Yeah, I think all the compliances that we have, they will have to do a paradigm shift because these were made with point-in-time assessments or compliances for systems that were deterministic. Now we are moving to a place where models are changing every day. Even regulatory bodies are understanding the new kind of risks that are coming in, which means the regulations are also changing. HIPAA itself has seen a lot of amendments coming up in the last couple of months, and new acts are coming up all the time. I think the idea of continuous compliance or a governance layer is now the need of the hour, where we are not doing just point-in-time checks, where your AI system was compliant on, say, June 1. Your models have changed maybe in the next 2 weeks. Your regulatory bodies have published new amendments in the next one couple of months. How do you keep up with that? I think evals is one of the ways to address this, where we create maybe safety evals, for lack of a better term, or governance evals, where they are also evolving over time, keeping with the industry, and then your systems are also being observed, maybe weekly samples of figuring out how the governance posture is looking like right now. This now part is where I think a lot of...
I completely agree, right? Point-in-time security was when you did not have enough equipped people to continuously monitor your systems. Most of the systems right now have audit logs, they have read-only permissions. Feeding them into some kind of an AI agent which constantly monitors your entire infrastructure is probably the baseline that any organization should have. So for me, at this point of time, you probably have to have some kind of solution which is looking at every event that is happening.
Yeah.
And that is the only way that you can be proactive if you have to deal with AI security. If someone is doing something which is not a pattern, let's say an impossible trial rule, someone logged in from Bangalore and immediately they are doing something from, say, Russia. So that is a flag which AI will immediately catch. So you have to have those systems in place which are doing continuous monitoring. And that's, for me, a baseline right now in any security system out there.
Yeah.
I think in the governance field, there are two parts to it, right? Right now, my opinion is the AI governance field is extremely underserved. The two parts are, the first is, I don't think there's even a framework, a methodology, a set of systems or procedures, or, the meta layer, so to speak, right? So first, all, the great compliance bodies that are there, they should, come up with this framework, the meta layer, what you call it. And next comes the execution, like you guys spoke about, where you have an agent, for all we have an Accorian governance agent running alongside, my LLMs, right? doing the job. So I think both of these need to be addressed. If you address the first one and keep evolving the first one, you will have the rest of your startups, the companies building out the second part, which is working off the governance.
I'd agree. I don't think if you look at it where it is right now, there isn't a framework that's there, right? If you look at any of the ones that are there, they don't evolve quickly enough, right? I mean, HIPAA is a government standard, so good luck trying to get that to evolve quickly enough, right? And if you look at the other ones, they're just not there. So the question then becomes, who gets there from a framework perspective? What does it look like, and then how do you implement it?
So right now, it's self-governance to an extent. Everyone is figuring out what is best. Even things like, I think now the industry is saying that, hey, agents should have their own identities. They should not be using proxy identities of the developer or the user, which is probably one of the biggest blind spots out there. Like, you cannot differentiate between Srijan using the AWS or the agent using AWS, then you can't even point where it went wrong.
So the problem with, you can always give an agent their own identity. That's not the problem. The problem is the legal accountability. Who does it rest with? So this actually touches law and philosophy, right? Is an AI agent a person? We know that in the US a corporation is a person, but is an AI agent a person? And if an AI agent is a person and if it does damage, who is responsible?
No, I think I'm not going to the legal framework right now, because at this point of time, I'm just thinking about if I have to do self-governance, I need to have auditability and traceability. The legal framework is way too complex. Like I said, does an AI agent think? I'm not going into that sinkhole right now.
No, there's precedents coming up, right? There's case from 2024 where Air Canada chatbot hallucinated and led to a lawsuit, and
they got a free fare or very low fare.
Yeah. And then there was a huge battle in the court. Is AI agents separate from Air Canada? Is the output owned by Air Canada or not? And I think precedence has now started to come up that you have to own your AI agent's output. You cannot be wash your hands off that. I'm not like.
It's exactly like a bug, right? If you have a software bug which does a mispriced fare,
it's still a problem.
It's still okay. I think the problem then becomes, let's say the AI agent was developed by a certain other body. There is no legal protection for Air Canada to shift the blame
Transfer
and get
of
insurance.
liabilities.
That's why you need insurance.
I think
yes, there you go.
I think it's there.
Walked into it.
It's there. I mean, if you look at Waymo, if you look at Tesla, right? If the car goes and gets into an accident for any reason, and you say that the perpetrator happens to be a miscalculation by the AI, it does go back to the corporation owning the AI.
Yep.
Can't hide behind the asterisks. That's the.
I think that's important, right? I think the frameworks don't exist yet, but at the end of the day, the company has to own the problem, right? Whether it's, I don't want to go down the.
So I think in the governance stuff, I think if you start treating AI agents as identities just for the case of a computer identity and not going to the legal framework of it, that at least gives you one level of, okay, we can treat it exactly like how we treat employees. That gives you can comply with SOC 2 and ISO with an additional layer over here. That gives you some idea. Plus, if you always follow zero trust, principle of least privilege, using fine-grained tokens, that I think now is the time to reinforce everything. To make sure that you cannot give too much privileges to even the developer, because they have access to these tools.
I think
this also brings the other perspective of this is when you go as a vendor and sell your product, saying that it's an AI native product, now you'll get scrutinized more than ever by CISOs or the buyers, right?
Yes.
Because at least for other products or other cybersecurity products, you have a framework to look at and you have the questions to ask.
The normal vendor
Now you
question
don't
is-
have any questions to ask. It is the question is I'm not there in your company. How do I know that my data is not being used for training? And the speed at which the AI adoption and the front-end models progress, governance is going to take time to catch up. So, for example, Claude organization plan, they released an observability endpoint just a few months back. Before that, there were no such products. There are no products that could do observability and to find out who's using Claude Cowork in your organization, right? And then they released complaints API, and I don't even know what's going on in OpenAI. So things are moving so fast that the governance is going to take time to catch up. And the only way to do this is to do build auditable systems and explainable systems and self-audit yourself and give that trust.
Yeah, I think there's multiple things that I just want to unpack, right? One is, I think most of us have the luxury of being at younger companies. So you can have the zero trust, you can have those. But I think when you go to a Fortune 100, which has still mainframes in the back end,
Yep.
it's a whole different ballgame, right? They're not there yet.
Yep.
And so their level of just how do you build that infrastructure, how do you build that trust, how do you, go at 100 miles an hour when you still have to take the mainframe with you, it just becomes much harder, right? I think, I think we're being too optimistic, right? I think I'll go back to my example I use on lots of sales calls, which is everybody claims to be HIPAA compliant because there's no certification behind it.
Yeah.
So everybody can claim to be HIPAA compliant. I think most companies will claim, hey, we are auditing ourselves, we are following, good practices. But in a market where you have to go at 100,000 miles an hour or whatever speed you want to go at, security becomes sometimes an afterthought. Let's face it, right? You have to look at P&L and get the profit and get the growth and satisfy the VCs and whatever else we have to do. And as much as we want to build it, somehow we have to get governance there. It just isn't there. I don't have an answer. I just know there's a problem there. And point in time won't solve it.
I also think that in the future, at least SaaS companies will have a plan which is higher priced with no AI, right? So
Really, you think so?
why not? Like you can like on-prem is the best example, right? You always price on-prem higher than any other deployment. So this is essentially pricing a product saying that we will not use any of your data, but instead of 10, you pay $30.
I think I agree with you again partially. I don't know if you guys recall. Do you recall that Google had a hardware device once upon a time, 15 or 20 years ago? I can't remember.
Yeah.
They had a hardware device, so you could plug
Oh,
it.
you can put,
internal source.
for your search,
in
right? You can put it into your data
Yep.
set.
So what's going to happen is you're going to pay extra dollars, and Anthropic or even Google might go, if you don't trust us, don't worry. Here's a hardware device. This is it's loaded with whatever Blackwell GPUs and everything. Put it in your data center in your NOC room, and it will process your data, and it will, and you can feel free to firewall this entire thing from the external internet, right? And that gives you like physical proof that all your inferencing and data is in your server room.
Which is already there, by the way. If you use Vertex, if you use Bedrock, technically it is deployed in your own infrastructure. And I think that's what, like any PI that has to go through that. I'm also talking about SaaS. Let's say tomorrow any product comes in, like Raven Mail, and you can just say that we will give you an offering, which is no AI. We will not process anything on AI. You just pay us extra. I fundamentally believe that's going to happen.
I think the governance part is still very important, where we need the framework, right?
Yeah.
Where we need the framework, or even the meta framework, where you want to call it, and coming to a point, right, where companies can certify. Just like the SOC 2, if there's an AI version of SOC 2 or SOC 2 for AI, right? And companies, and that has been defined well, and which is evolving, and companies subscribe to that. I think that will make an impact, because even right now, like, we are a small startup, but I can go to AWS and I can download AWS SOC 2 or SOC 3 as well, right? Because as a customer of AWS, so if I have something like that as a governance, as a standard, then your entire chain, your entire AI stack will have that certification.
No, it's coming along, right?
What's the EU governance framework called? EU
AI Act.
Act. Okay.
So there's EU AI Act, there's ISO 4201, there's NIST got one, High Trust has one. So they're all coming along, but they still have to come there, right? I mean, I think there are less than 100 companies that are 4201 certified right now.
Yeah.
So still early days, right? And it's evolving.
EU AI Act is actually unique because it kind of does not talk a lot about governance, but consequences. It's shifting the...
I think that's all of EU sometimes, right? It's all about the fine side of things.
Yeah, it's shifting the conversation from you doing something well versus you bearing the consequence of you don't do something well. I think that's an interesting take on governance, I would say.
Yeah.
That sounds like our AI handbook for global scale.
Cool.
Yeah.
Last question to wrap things up, if you will. AI is evolving quickly. If you're all running organizations, what is the one thing you'd say, hey, if I had to start from an AI security perspective, what's the one or two things I'd want to make sure gets done now at a company level?
You can assume that AI is in your company, inside your company. So you have to, first thing is acceptance. Second is take the inventory of everything. So the bigger the organization, the more difficult it's going to get, right? So you need to know how many agents are there, who has given what permissions and which team has been using which agents. And first take the inventory, and if you can't observe or count something, then you won't be able to prevent that.
The hard part is getting the inventory in the first place. And
there are products out there. I mean, Raven Mail is doing that. So there are products out there.
Everyone's plugging in their own companies. Nice.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but it's the getting there.
Yeah, I think reducing the blind spots and then finding the right solutions to put in the guardrails, put in the friction points, put in the. So I think taking inventory is a great first step, because that reduces your blind spot. You know exactly what you need to address. And once you have identified, so within all of like what we have done is we've created a heavy suite of guardrails, which is what is acting as a pre-deployment check. And something only goes to production if you have a, if it passes. If it passes everything, or at least a confidence interval, because sometimes these guardrails can act as a anti-catalyst to your progress as well. So you'll have to make reasonable bets, but then ensure that some things are non-negotiable. Those guardrails, how do you construct them? It can have some sort of self-bias, because you're the one building guardrails and you're the one building the systems. So I think having a maker-checker kind of a philosophy, where someone is building the guardrails and someone else is validating them.
But start by reducing the blind spots, then go to the guardrails and maker-checker side of things.
Absolutely.
I can go. So I think you have to go back to the basics. Zero trust, principle of least privilege, security and privacy by design. If you stick to this, fundamentally, you are reducing the blast radius and attack surface. And then you can evolve to more complex stuff. If you have zero trust, you get visibility on who's using your infrastructure. If you do security and privacy by design, you know that there are guardrails and checks preventing something happening. So yeah, stick to the basics is still golden principle accordingly.
I think in any organization, or most of the organizations, there are two parts to it, right? So as the part of the organization which is an AI consumer, I think the one thing is train your people. Give them tell them how to do it right, how to do AI right? So what I want to call like AI hygiene, right? So make sure your employees have a good AI hygiene, right? As a consumer, as a producer, I think the one or two things is evals and red teaming, right? It is the one thing, it is the one construct available to us right now, right? I don't know what's going to be there even 6 months down the line, right? But right now, that's one of the things that if you are an AI producer, will really help you if you start it early. Rather than when your product is.
I think between us, we've basically said the whole thing, right? Which is reduce your blind spots, get governance in place, architect it right, for lack of a think of the architecture and how you architect, and then test to make sure you've architected it right. So you've covered the gamut of everything that needs to be done. I think the one thing I'd call out though is you have to assume something's going to go wrong, right? And
Murphy's law.
Sorry, Murphy's law. It's it's a given, right? And it's. What we see is, are companies ready for it, right? Do they have good reputation management PR firms in place? Do they have incident management in place? And not just a cookie cutter thing that they've never opened, but have they really executed and said, what will happen? Who's going to do what? How is it going to work? And with the scale of AI and the speed, if you assume something's going wrong, you have to test that as well. Not just the good, but unfortunately the bad, right? If it does go wrong, how are you going to account for it and solve for it, if you will?
Only the paranoid survive.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think it's the same framework that you have, just like you have any kind of a cyber incident. You have all your departments working together, like, what has happened to the root cause. Obviously reputation management and PR management comes in, but that's a separate angle to it, right? How do you get to the meat of the matter, right? If you had an AI blow up, like, why did it happen?
I think the differences in cyber, I think we talked about this at the beginning, right, is the incidents, although there are lots of incidents, were not as prevalent as you're going to start to see in next iteration, right? So a lot of times there were tabletop exercises, they were taken half seriously, just more for a checklist for compliance sake. And I think that will need to change. But yeah, I get where you're going.
I think as a closing or as a leading thought that I have is I think it's a good time to check all the order forms, all the MSAs, all the contracts, all the policies that you have. Are they ready for now? Because a lot of them are being carried or transferred from pre-LLM era to now the new era that we're stepping into. I think it's a good time for us, as someone who are running companies or building organizations, good time to like take a step back and go through those verbiage to understand are we ready for today, because a lot of it you'll find there's a lot of gaps there.
Yeah, like I said, only the paranoid survive. So you have to be very careful about everything that you're doing. Stick to the basics. Make sure that your systems are in place to prevent any of this from happening. But yeah, I think you need to keep evolving, just like AI keeps on evolving.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.